What's going on, everybody? Here today with another Bodhi Tree mental health video. On this channel I talk about my own journey through severe mental illness, mainly obsessive compulsive disorder and severe anxiety. I want to talk about the silver lining in getting a mental health diagnosis, the silver lining in hitting rock bottom. You know, so often when I share my mental health journey and I talk about I have these mental health problems, I'm suffering with anxiety and depression or whatever, typically either the person that I'm talking to identifies and says, hey, I struggle with these, not these exact same symptoms, but I struggle with anxiety, or I struggle with focusing, or I struggle with depression. And if the person I'm talking to doesn't, the person I'm talking to, someone in their family very close to them, is struggling. This is pretty much always the case. I rarely ever run into people and share my experience where people say, oh man, that sounds fucking crazy. I don't know, I've never struggled with my mental health at all. And I don't know anybody who doesn't struggle with their mental health. Pretty much everybody out here is either struggling with their mental health or knows someone very close to them that is struggling with their mental health on a daily basis. I give you a few examples just from my personal life. I'm a driver trainer, and so I train truck drivers. And my last student, I was telling him about how I have anxiety and OCD and what that was like. And then he was sharing me, he said, well, his girlfriend has anxiety. And of course, I'm always skeptical because, when we suffer at this level of OCD and anxiety, we feel like nobody really gets it. You know what I mean? Everybody keeps on saying they have anxiety, but, we're the ones that are debilitated, and it's we're the ones that are having, things got so bad for us to where we're having to we're the ones that got stuck. You know what I mean? And so I started, prodding a little bit, oh, it's just anxiety, what do you mean like that? And basically, what he ended up telling me was she's stuck in the past with her ex and always bringing in her ex to the situation. And even more than that, basically, she's constantly asking for reassurance. I mean, this guy he told me that his girl would ask up to 100 times a day if he was mad at him, if they were upset, if he wanted to break up. And I was like, wow. I was like, your girl sounds like she has relationship OCD. For those of you all who are familiar with the OCD community, she suffers from that theme of relationship OCD. And here she is living her life. She's not really been able to hold a job. He also tells me that he's not been able to. She's not. It's really hard for her to hold a job, and it's hard for her to get out of bed. And so all of those, that she doesn't have an official diagnosis of OCD and anxiety. She just knows she has anxiety, but she's pretty unaware of how it's affecting her life, because she's been living like this, she's been coping somehow, to the point to where she's not watching the videos like these. She's not, seeking, not on Instagram and Facebook pages, trying to look for a way out of this situation. She's just basically living on this chronic anxiety level that's pretty much unacknowledged. The severity of her situation is unacknowledged because I guess she feels that she's coping enough to move forward. And for all of us with our mental health challenges and mental health problems, a lot of people think that they developed anxiety like that, you know what I mean? And that was it. Was, that oh fuck moment, that moment, we know when we're all stuck, that kind of wall that we hit, with OCD. Thing is that we had anxiety long before that, and for most of us, it was probably a long-term, perhaps a lifelong problem. I know for myself, looking back into my childhood, I definitely struggled with anxiety, growing up in different areas and aspects of my life. And I just ended up, because of just all the work and just life circumstances, I just ended up hitting that wall, going into my early 30s. But a lot of people, they don't hit that wall, and so they kind of just coast through life with this this type of suffering. Another thing that I talked to my sister this weekend, and she was like in bed, and I could tell she's kind of in a bad mood, and she comes out and she's talking to me, you know, about you know, what's bothering her, and you know, she's worried about her trip, and she's worried about her work, her business trip, and she's worried about, you know, this relationship, and you know, she's thinking about going back to her therapist. So my sister, who has always, you know, seemed to have some anxiety issues, although she's not diagnosed like me and, you know, never hit that wall like me, you know, she still suffers from anxiety and depression. You know what I mean? One of her friends, we were by the pool, and you know, obviously this channel is really based on mindfulness and mindful living, and we're by the pool, and like during a conversation, one of my sister's friends like totally got lost in her head and was just like, oh, sorry, I just blanked out, like I just went here, there, and everywhere. And you know, and I just knew in that moment, I was just like, you know, she's not even really here, you know, she's off in La La Land. And I know, we all know what that's like to be off in La La Land, you know. And so these are just some instances within the last week or so that where, you know, you pick up on other people's mental health problems, whether it's someone that has pretty bad OCD themselves and they don't have a diagnosis. It's people like my sister, who's living a productive life and coping, but still living with anxiety and depression, probably a lot of symptoms unacknowledged, seems to be coping pretty well, but I'm sure, you know, definitely, you know, eroding the quality of life to people that, you know, just can't focus and can't relax into the moment and are just constantly off in their heads and missing their life. And so the silver lining that I wanted to say, like in this video, is that, you know, everybody out here has mental health, you know, and on the spectrum of mental health, you know, you're gonna have some people that have really good mental health, and that's what I think that people that are practicing, you know, what I'm talking about, trying to live mindfully and be in the present moment and be happy and calm and peaceful through practice, rather than all of this like seeking type behavior, you know, just kind of learning to live in the moment, right? And then you have other people that are, you know, in the middle, kind of like suffering or whatnot, you know what I mean, on this kind of low level, you know, drudgery, you know, of anxiety and depression, not overwhelmed and overtaken by it, but an unacknowledged sense of suffering that is eroding their quality of life, just unacknowledged, right? And then you have, you know, people that develop severe mental health problems, and, you know, in those severe mental health problems, they become debilitated, or they contemplate taking their own life, or their whole life basically changes in an instant. And so the silver lining, I think, to, you know, developing severe mental illness is that in that hitting that brick wall, you have the opportunity to recognize, unlike the majority of people out here who are suffering, you know, low-key suffering, you know what I mean, chronically, and will probably for most of their life, right? They will suffer perhaps forever because the pain didn't get so great that it was unacknowledged. But for us, the silver lining is that because we hit rock bottom, we have the opportunity to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, because we understand that we have a mind, and we understand that we have a brain, and we understand that, you know, we understand that we have to improve our mental health. And so much of, you know, so much of that acknowledgement and that awareness within ourselves can push us into a much better direction than most people's mental health. So I think, if anything, is the silver lining in developing a severe mental illness is that, you know, we have the opportunity to actually acknowledge and improve our mental health, whereas a lot of people, they won't. It's an unacknowledged source of pain and problems in their mind. But anyways, I wanted to you know, share this video. I know I don't post as many videos, but I hope you like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and I hope this video serves you all well. Peace, everybody.